All right, we are going to start lesson 2 at the beginning. We did part of it yesterday. We're going to finish it up today. So a couple things before we start the lesson. We just want to review some of the vocabulary that we've been working on. So two angles that are a common side are called adjacent angles. That means that they are next to each other. Two angles that are not adjacent, meaning that they are not next to each other, are called vertical angles. So if you want to draw a little picture here, we have two lines that intersect. The ones that are not next to each other are called vertical angles. And two lines are perpendicular if they intersect at a point and all right angles are formed. That's called perpendicular. All right, so we are going to write an equation for the rest of these. We've already talked about each one of these angle relationships. So adjacent angles are next to each other. Notice in this picture, those two smaller angles, when I add those together, you'll get the whole big angle. So I wrote angle A plus angle B is equal to angle C. Add those two up, you get the whole thing. Vertical angles are across from each other. They are equal to each other. So angle A is equal to angle B. This is angles on a line. We know that they form a straight line, which means they add up to 180. So if you take those two angles, angle A plus angle B, you'll get 180. And angles on a point mean they form a complete circle, so they'll add up to 360. So angle A, angle B, angle C, add them up, you get 360. All right, in exercise 1, I want to show you this example because you're going to notice that that loop for X represents the whole angle. And if you want to take your color pencils or highlighters and trace that, that's angle X. It's the whole thing. It's not the 90-degree angle, although that is 90 degrees, but X represents the whole thing. So if you want to label 90, you can, but that X represents the whole thing. Now that is right next to this angle over here, which is 22 degrees. And if I pull in, you know, I like to pull in my straight edge. Those two angles are a straight line, which means they add up to 180. So that's the sentence I wrote. That X and 22 are angles on a line, which mean they add up to 180. So if I write an equation from that, I get X plus 22 equals 180. Subtract 22 from both sides, and you get 158. So that X is 158 degrees. Now, there's other ways to figure that out. If you know that this is a 90-degree angle, all we'd have to find is this little sliver to add it together. So how would you figure that out? Well, if you look, this is also a 90-degree angle, which means that 22 plus this is equal to 90. You'd have to set up an equation. I don't want you just subtracting. I want to see actual equations. And if you do that, you get 68. And if X is these two angles put together, you would then add those. So 90 plus 68 is 158. And it doesn't matter how you get that answer. Just make sure you're showing equations. All right, so we're going to skip all the way to that last example that we didn't complete yesterday. Let me flip it in my binder. All right. So here's the picture that we have. Notice that there's two unknowns. Okay. Now, I'm going to erase this. Yes, I already did the problem, and I want to show you before you just copy. All right. Now, there is an X and a Y, but we cannot do those in the same exact equation. It just is impossible. So you want to look for things like straight lines and right angles. So I'm going to take my highlighter and highlight this so that you can see there's a right angle there. I know this because there's a box. That means that this angle and this angle, when put together, will add up to 90 degrees. So that's my first sentence. That I have Y and 16 form a right angle, which means they add up to 90. So what does that mean for my equation? My equation would be Y plus 16 equals 90. When I solve that, I get 74. That's why I had 74 there to begin with. Anytime you figure out one of your unknowns, it's really nice to label it in the diagram. All right, so we still need to find x. Now, it's really hard to tell, but that little arc goes all the way from here past the 90-degree mark to that other ray. So this whole thing is what they're trying to find. We know this is 90. If you'd like to mark that, you can. So the only thing I need to know is this little sliver here. So let's think about that. How would we figure that out? Well, in class today, people said this right here is a right angle. So the pink is a right angle, which means this plus this add up to 90. If I do that, I get 16 degrees. So I'm going to label it. And then I can add 90 plus 16. So that's how we did it in class today. Now, I thought of this a different way. I thought that x and 74, so this whole angle, the green angle, plus this y that we just found, add up to 180 because it forms a straight line right here. When I subtracted, I got 106, which is the same thing if you would have found this first and then added. It's the same method. All right, I'm going to have you try the rest of that homework. You're only doing numbers 1 and 2 today from the problem set, so go ahead and try that on your own. Good luck.